fans, this is Zubi Masters returning to my Let's Play of Trigger Happy Havoc Danganronpa.
The note that Hiro wrote, asking everyone to meet up after Alter Ego disappeared. The handwriting's obviously different, wouldn't you say? When you compare it to the blueprints.
There's no way you could think the same person made both of them.
Unless that person made it a point to disguise their handwriting.
No, the differences are bigger than that, I think.
Come on! I'm not smart enough to think of trying to change my handwriting anyway.
So Makoto, are you saying you don't think Hiro's the culprit?
And he's not the only one. I think Hiro's innocent as well.
What?
Then who was in that Robo-Justice suit? Is it like Hiro said? Was there really someone running around in a second suit?
The suspicious individual hidden within the suit. Go ahead, Makoto. Tell them who it was.
So? Who was in the Robo-Justice suit?
I got it! Other than Hiro, I can't think of anyone else it could have been. Obviously, he was the one in that particular suit, and we never found any kind of second suit.
Then there can be no doubt. Hiro is the prime suspect.
That doesn't make any sense! You just said Hiro didn't do it!
It makes perfect sense. Hiro was the suspicious individual in the suit, but he's not the culprit.
So what you're saying is...
That's right. The culprit in this case has nothing to do with being in the Robo-Justice suit.
What? Now that's a bold assumption!
And what reason do you have to make such a statement? You do have a reason, yes?
Of course. But before we get to that, there's something else we need to clarify first. So let's get that out of the way.
Hey, stop trying to boss us around!
All things have a proper order.
So what is it? What needs to be clarified?
We must clarify the method of transportation for Taka's lifeless body. It would seem that his corpse was moved using certain particular items. Makoto, can you tell us what they were?
I got it!
Still one more kill.
I got it! They were a dolly and a tarp, right?
The attitude.
So, let's see if I can explain. Taka's body disappeared from the equipment room, and then we rediscovered it in the repository. And when we found it for the second time, it was wrapped in a blue tarp, right? It was the same tarp that, up until then, was stored in the equipment room. So the killer must have seen it there, and decided to use it when they moved Taka's body. That way, they wouldn't leave any bloodstains while they were moving it.
Okay, that explains the tarp. And the dolly?
Same thing. I'm sure the dolly was in the equipment room when we first found Taka's body there. But when the body disappeared, so did the dolly. Later, when Taka's body reappeared in the repository, so did the dolly.
In other words, you think they used the dolly to move the body, am I right? But are you sure you are not mistaken? Are you absolutely positive the dolly was in the equipment room when we found Taka's body? That dolly was made specifically for moving large objects between the repository and the art room. It would be very strange indeed to discover it had made its way to the equipment room. Is it not possible that it was in the repository all along, and you simply didn't realize it?
She's raised an objection. How do you respond?
There is no shame in being wrong. Nobody expects much from you anyway. We have all accepted the fact that you rarely understand what is going on around you. You have it wrong. I cannot agree. You are a fool. So pathetic. Lies will get you nowhere. Do your worst. You miserable wretch. I cannot agree. You are a fool. Do your worst. You have it wrong. I cannot agree. You are a fool. So pathetic. I cannot agree.
This should prove it. If you're asking for proof that the dolly moved, I have it right here. When I found the dolly in the repository, one of the wheels had a blood stain on it. There was a pool of blood in the equipment room with a tire marker that matched the dolly wheel's tread. The killer probably rolled the dolly through the blood on accident as they wheeled the body out of the room. And as the blood dried on the tire, they moved the body into the repository. So there's my proof that the dolly was used to move Taka's body.
This life really hate me.
Well, anyway, that was just something we had to get out of the way. Let's get back to the main subject.
Yeah, the subject of how Robo Justice didn't do it. Because if it's not a killer robot, then... what kind of robot is it?
I'm not sure that really matters.
I'd be happy to explain why the occupant of the suit couldn't possibly be the killer. If you look back on how the body was transported, it will become immediately obvious. As we know, Taka was killed in the equipment room. And from there, the body was moved to the repository, correct?
Yeah, the culprit wrapped the body in the tarp, then loaded it onto the dolly and wheeled it off, right?
Now, keep in mind that the dolly doesn't have a handle.
Well, yeah, but even without a handle, all you'd have to do is bend over. Then you could push the dolly no problem.
So the killer just crouched down and carted the body off to the repository.
If you accept everything we just said, then you must realize that whoever was in the suit couldn't possibly be the culprit.
Sorry. I don't think I realized anything.
Handle, so to push it, you'll have to be able to bend over. You know, wearing the suit be able to get down like that?
As we know, Taka and from there.
Yeah, the culprit then loaded it onto...
Now, keep in mind that the dolly...
Well, yeah, but even without a handle, all you'd have to do is bend over.
No, it's wrong. You're absolutely right that you could push a dolly without a handle if you stoop down low. But if you were wearing that suit, do you think you could actually get into a position like that?
What do you mean?
Think back to what you said when we were all checking out the suit together. Remember? When you're in that suit, not only can you not see your feet, but you can't even bend at the waist. Am I right about that?
Now that you mention it, yeah.
It seems like it'd be awfully hard to push that dolly if you couldn't bend over.
Well, what's to stop you from simply pushing the dolly with your feet?
When you can't even see your feet? You really think someone could kick the dolly all that way?
Yeah, it'd be totally impossible! Not that I can say for sure myself.
On top of that, if you were wearing such a rigid, cumbersome suit, it's very unlikely you would have the dexterity to go about wrapping the body in a tarp.
Well, I mean, isn't that just a matter of taking off the suit when you're ready to move the body?
I got it! I don't think taking off the suit was an option. If you remember...
That's true. It seems impossible to put the suit on or take it off without help.
Then, you really can't take it off by yourself? Hiro wasn't just making it up?
Of course I wasn't making it up.
If he could have gotten it off by himself, I don't think he would have let us see him wearing it. Showing up in the suit was basically an invitation for everyone to suspect it.
Yeah, that's right!
So, it's really, really true that Robo-Justice couldn't have moved the dolly?
To be clear, whoever did move the body, it couldn't have been Hiro in the robot suit, correct?
No, wait. Just a second, if you please. Have you forgotten about the picture that I took? You all got a good look at it, did you not? The image of Hifumi being dragged away by Robo-Justice? If whoever was in that suit is not the culprit, how do you explain that? Besides, do you remember what the now deceased Hifumi said? So long as those facts exist, the proper conclusion is beyond question. The individual inside the suit and the culprit are one and the same. It was Hiro, without a doubt.
Yeah, that's gotta be right.
Hold on a second!
It's still far too early to reach that conclusion. Besides, there's no hurry to decide who did it. Before we rush to a verdict, shouldn't we explore every single possibility? Instead of seizing on one viewpoint, the truth is uncovered by analyzing things from every angle.
Perhaps, but where do we go from here?
Let's review this series of unfortunate events from the beginning. Maybe we'll uncover something new.
What a pain in the ass!
I don't disagree, but our lives are on the line. If this is what it takes, we have to do it.
Plus, maybe we'll get to find out where the heck Kyoko was when everything went down.
All right then, let's take another look back at what happened. I suppose we could start with this morning. 4 of us gathered together in the dining hall. Makoto, Hina, Kyoko, and myself. We waited there for quite a while, but nobody else showed up, so we went to look for everyone. That was around 8 a.m.
And as soon as we split up, Kyoko went missing.
Soon after that, Hina found Celeste in the rec room and quickly came to get Makoto and me.
It seems I was unconscious for about an hour after I was attacked by my mystery assailant. I know it was an hour because I remember being attacked a little after 7.
That was when we saw Celeste's picture and discovered that her assailant had been wearing a strange costume. As it turns out, it was Robo-Justice. It also soon became clear that this same Robo-Justice had abducted Hifumi. We were soon joined in our search by Byakuya and Toko, and then went on to find Hifumi in the library. He was injured, so we took him to the nurse's office and resumed our search for the suspect. But not long after leaving the nurse's office...
When Celeste told us that, we decided to split up and search the second floor. And soon after that,
I saw someone moving around on the 3rd floor, and I yelled out to everyone as soon as I did.
and then... At that point, we decided to divide up into 2 groups. Celeste, Hina, and I went back to the nurse's office, while Sakura, Byakuya, and Toko chased after the suspect. When we got back to the nurse's office, we found Hifumi, dead. And that's when we heard the body discovery announcement. I left Celeste and Hina there and headed back to the 3rd floor to let the others know what had happened.
Meanwhile, we had just discovered Taka's body in the equipment room. We must have found both bodies at almost exactly the same time, because we heard the same announcement not long after we discovered his body.
And that's when I told you guys about Hifumi. Then the 3 of us headed for the nurse's office. But right after we left the physics lab, we ran into Celeste, who'd arrived after us, and she told us something very surprising. We rushed back to the nurse's office and saw that she was right.
Then we remembered we'd left Toko passed out in the equipment room, so we hurried back again. But when we got there, we discovered that now Taka's body had also gone missing. Next thing we knew, we were searching the school for 2 missing dead bodies. And after some time,
Celeste informed us that she'd found the bodies, and we all headed to the repository, which is where we rediscovered the corpses.
I think that about covers it.
I see. The whole thing sounds exceptionally complicated. It certainly seems to me that these are not a simple series of connected events.
Okay, well, if that's true, then what?
Rather than a single series of events, I think we have to consider each murder a separate situation. And from there, we can uncover the contradictions surrounding all of them. Now then, let's get started, beginning with what happened to Taka. So, regarding Taka's death, I wonder if he died before Hifumi. Or perhaps it was after?
We already know what order they were killed in. Taka came last.
what makes you say that?
Because of the numbering of the Justice Hammers.
It's true that Hifumi was killed with Justice Hammer 3, while Taka's death came from a swing of Justice Hammer 4.
See? So it's obvious Taka came after. So, I wonder if he or perhaps it was after. We already know Taka came last.
What makes you say that?
Because of the numbering of the Justice Hammers.
It's true that Hifumi
He was killed with just while Taka's death came.
See? So it's obvious Taka came after.
So,
Regarding Taka, I wonder if he died before perhaps it was after. We already know what order they were killed in.
No,
No, it's wrong!
hold on. There's no reason to assume that the hammers were used in the same order as their numbers. If anything, that's just another way the killer tried to disguise their actions.
So you're saying the culprit wanted us to think the hammers were used in order, But in reality, Taka was killed before Hifumi? Okay then, let's see the proof.
Now I understand. I've got it. Taka's wristwatch. See? Look. It broke with the hands pointing just past 6 o'clock.
It must have gotten broken when he was attacked by the killer. Because as of last night, so if it wasn't broken after 6 last night, then he must have been attacked around 6 this morning.
And that would be his official time of death.
But if that's true, then he was killed well before Hifumi.
And before Celeste was attacked this morning, which happened around 7.
That's right. Taka was killed before any of the other incidents took place.
That simple fact slipped past all of us. We made the wrong assumption about the order of events, all because of those justice hammers.
That's exactly why the culprit wrote the numbers on each hammer and had them increase in size. That way, when we saw how they were used in each incident, we'd easily make that wrong assumption.
Now, if Taka was killed around 6, then everyone's alibis for his murder go out the window. Because when he was killed, we hadn't met up in the dining hall yet.
That may be true in the case of Taka's murder. But all of our alibis still hold true for Hifumi's death.
That's right. With him, at least, we're all safe. When we heard Hifumi screaming, we were all together. Except for Hiro and Kyoko. Then we all ran down to the nurse's office, and that's where we found his body. That's totally true! We're all in the clear!
Oh, I know! They must have recorded him screaming on a tape or something, then played it later on!
If that's true, where's the tape?
I don't know.
Don't just go making stuff up!
Anyway, we all have rock-solid alibis for when we heard Hifumi scream. Since all of us were there together, clearly none of us could have killed him.
And it does not stop there. There was also the moment when we discovered his body had disappeared. When his body vanished from the nurse's office, Hina and I were in the bathroom together, while everyone else was in the equipment room, correct? And then there's the disappearance of Taka's body from the equipment room. At that time, we were all gathered together in the nurse's office because of Hifumi going missing.
Well, don't forget, I was passed out in the equipment room the whole time!
Then what if Genocide Jill did it? She could have dragged Taka's body out of there right then!
Even if she could pull that off, there's no way she could have done the same with Hifumi's body. Because, as we just established, she was passed out in the equipment room when his body disappeared.
Besides, I didn't do either of them anyway. In other words, it is impossible that any of us could have killed Hifumi or moved either of their bodies. On the other hand, Hiro and Kyoko had disappeared, so they most certainly could have done those things.
So what now, Kyoko?
For now, we can't get fixated on who did it, or we'll just keep going around in circles. So instead of who, I propose we start talking about how. In particular, I think we need to figure out how Hifumi's body got moved.
That's true. We searched everywhere, but we couldn't figure out how to explain his body disappearing. And according to what Celeste said,
Could not have gone for more than a minute or two. So then the killer was able to get in and move Hifumi's body in that short amount of time? Seems so.
his body apparently disappeared in the 1 minute her and Hina took their eyes off of it. But to carry that much weight from the first floor up to the third in that short amount of time?
Oh man, yeah! There's no way! It'd be impossible!
Well, what if I told you there was a way to make the impossible possible?
What? How?
If the dead body were to move itself.
The dead body moved on its own?
No! Not another... ghost!
I don't think it has anything to do with the occult. I think what she's implying is... we thought Hifumi was dead, but perhaps in reality he was still alive.
He was alive?
Are you saying Hifumi wasn't carried out of the nurse's office, but simply walked out on his own?
But I mean, we found his body. He was dead.
Perhaps he was simply playing dead.
That it isn't possible.
Are you saying that when we first found Hifumi in the nurse's office, there's a chance he was actually still alive?
No, it is impossible. Hifumi was dead, without a doubt.
And you know that how?
Surely you heard the body discovery announcement along with the rest of us. Hifumi's dead body had been found. And that is why the announcement was made.
Are we really so sure about that? Maybe the announcement was intended to signal someone else's discovery.
Are you saying that when we first there's a chance he... No. It is Hifumi was dead. And you know that surely you've heard the body Hifumi's dead body had, and that is why the announcement...
Are we really so sure about that? Maybe the announcement was intended to signal someone else's discovery.
Are you saying that when we first found there's a chance he was No. It is impossible. Hifumi was dead, without a doubt.
And you know that how?
Surely you heard the body discovery announcement along with the Hifumi's dead body had been found.
No, it's wrong! Was the body discovery announcement that was made really intended for Hifumi?
Of course it was. The announcement played right after we discovered his body.
Maybe. But that was also the same time that Taka's body was found.
That's right. It wasn't long after finding his body that we heard the announcement.
So there's a good chance we've made a mistake in there somewhere. I think we've confused whether the announcement was for Hifumi or Taka.
First of all, if 2 bodies had been found, there really should have been 2 announcements.
Maybe Monokuma simply got lazy and rolled them together into one.
What do you say, Monokuma? Any comment?
Well, it's a very sensitive issue, so I can't go into too much detail. But what I can say about the body discovery announcement is that it's only broadcast when 3 or more people find a dead body for the first time.
That didn't answer our question, man. We're asking if you're a lazy bum.
No, actually, that was plenty. Huh? He said it's only broadcast when a body is discovered for the first time, which means even if we find the same body again later, he won't make the announcement again. If that's true, then why was the announcement made again later on?
Huh? Later on?
Exactly. We heard the body discovery announcement twice. I got it! We heard it a second time in the repository, when we rediscovered the 2 bodies. It didn't seem weird at the time. But it contradicts what Monokuma just told us, doesn't it?
Exactly. If we were actually rediscovering both bodies, the announcement shouldn't have played.
Then in reality, when the 2 dead bodies were rediscovered, one of them was actually rediscovered for the first time.
So, when we found Hifumi the first time in the nurse's office, he wasn't actually dead yet. Meaning, he wasn't actually found dead until we came upon him in the repository.
And that's just part of it. There's one other thing that leads me to believe he was still alive in the nurse's office.
Oh, I know! Because he was super good at playing dead! Bada bing, bada boom!
That is the worst logic I have ever heard. But honestly, I do not think there's anything that can prove he was still alive.
Okay then, let's take another look at the events surrounding the discovery of his body. Then it should become clear whether he was really alive or not.
This whole thing is pointless.
Well, here's one thing we do know. The first time we found Hifumi's body was in the nurse's office. And then, while me and Celeste were in the bathroom, his body disappeared.
And the next time we saw his body, it was in the repository.
But when you compare his body before being moved and his body after being moved, other than the change in how it was positioned, there was no notable difference.
Then, Was he really still alive?
Of course not. It is impossible. This is ridiculous.
Well, here's one thing. The first time we found him, and then, well, his body disappeared.
And the next time, it was in the...
But when you compare his body before being moved, other than the change in how it was positioned, there was no notable difference.
No, it's wrong.
That's it for this video. Hope you like it and stay tuned.